So of course on the channel now, we've had a couple of different longer format videos that have gone for quite a while and have taken me a long time to put together. A lot of research into a bunch of different AFL teams and what's going on, whether that's in the 2025 off season or looking forward to what could potentially happen later in the 2025 AFL season. And look, I might be getting a little bit too ahead of myself here, but you know, I don't really have a life. So I don't have a girlfriend. My friends are currently all with their girlfriends. Cornhub was down last time I checked. This could be an internet issue on my part or whatever it might be. But I was like, you know what? I've got some spare time here, considering I'm a bit lonely. So I thought, you know what? Let's do another massive AFL format video and look into the future of what could be happening in 2025, whether this is the AFL draft or free agency and trade period, and what could potentially happen. So again, in today's video, I will be going over the potential top 10 picks in the 2025 AFL draft, a lot of the players we think could go high up there, as well as some free agency moves and what Richmond could be potentially planning on doing with all of the major free agent, salary cap they're going to have, because Tom Lynch is going to be ending his contract and he's the highest paid player in the AFL this year. Dusty was the highest paid player last year and that contract ended. They got rid of Bolton, who was like the 7th highest paid player. Richmond are going to have a lot of salary cap, so they're going to go after some free agents, I think. But again, we're going to be talking about that all and more in today's video. If there are some things that you have already seen me talk about, because again, some of this is a just compilation of some other videos and whatnot, just skip forward and find something a little bit different, because this video is massive. It's almost as big as a BBC that you would find on the previously mentioned website. So there is a lot for you guys to consume here, and it's taken me a long time to of course edit and put all of this together. Again, before we do get into it though, there is still a decent amount of you guys who watch these videos who are not yet subscribed to the channel. So if you could do me a massive favor and leave a like on this video just to let me know you guys of course enjoy it and whatnot. Subscribe to the channel for all that sports content and news. And I guess without further ado, let's just get straight into it. So I feel like something that people legitimately aren't talking about enough in the AFL community is how much the Gold Coast Suns really set themselves up in the 2024 trade period to have an absolutely insane 2025 AFL draft. Again, they were able to solidify massive trades with Port Adelaide and Collingwood that actually not only sent them Collingwood's first round pick for 2025, but Port Adelaide's first round pick for 2025, meaning that the Gold Coast Suns have 3 2025 first round picks. And if you thought that was one of the craziest things you've heard a team have early on going into a draft, it legitimately gets crazier with Gold Coast currently having the number 1 ranked prospect of 2025 tied to their academy, meaning that they will basically get him for very, very cheap. Now, before I do get into that all and more, again, this may be one of your first videos that you guys watch of mine where I have a little bit of a difference. Again, I do have braces, so, they are there. Again, if you would like to make a comment in the comment section down below, saying that if you swiped your card between my teeth, you could get cash out, that would be pretty funny, and I'm going to let you do that because you've got the opportunity for about probably a year to a year and a half, because again, once this gap closes up in my teeth from these braces, you're not going to be able to go and comment that anymore. So do it while you can, I suppose. But again, before we do get into the player that the Gold Coast Suns do currently have the rights to, who is projected to be the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 AFL draft, I think we should go over this massive trade that has really set Gold Coast, God, just burped in my mouth, has really set Gold Coast up to be, not only a good team this year, but have a powerhouse off-season in 2025. So again, it is being said that Collingwood in this trade received Dan Houston and pick 58, while the Port Adelaide Football Club got back Jack Lukosius and Rory Atkins from, of course, the Gold Coast Suns. I think that Gold Coast gave up pick 13 in this trade. I think, yeah, that was, of course, from the Gold Coast Suns there. And Gold Coast ended up bringing in a monster haul, which looked like John Noble, a 2025 first-round pick from Port Adelaide, a 2025 first-round pick from Collingwood, and pick 39, which is absolutely insane considering Rory Atkins is a player who I don't even know if he's good enough to be in the AFL. Jack Lukosius as well. I have been very public on this channel to say that What the fuck? Did anyone see that? Am I absolutely tripping out, or did my lightsaber in NFL football just completely die in the background? Bro, what was I talking about? I don't even know. As I was saying before, Casper the Ghost decided to rudely cockblock this video right now. I've been public on this channel to say that I have never been that big of a fan of Jack Lukosius. I don't necessarily like the way he plays. I also think he gives up way too easy. And I think that the Gold Coast Suns not only got an upgrade in John Noble, but they were able to move away from Lukosius's really big contract and bring a first-round pick back in from Port Adelaide. How have they legitimately managed to do that? I'm not exactly too sure, but that is a crazy move that has really set up Gold Coast for the future, now to the point where they have 3 first-round picks going into 2025. Again, considering Port Adelaide should slightly fall, Collingwood should probably just make the 8, and I think Gold Coast will probably just make the 8. It could be like picks of pick 11, 12 and 14 type things, which are very good. Those are good picks, and if I was an educated man, which I'm not very, but if I was, I very much think that the Gold Coast Suns will probably trade at least 2 of those picks, where they'll maybe trade like 11 and 14 to go out and get like, maybe pick 6 and a bunch of 4th round picks and 3rd round picks, so they can of course go and match the player I'm going to be talking about, which is Zeke Uwland. His nickname is literally Zeke the Freak. Like, my nickname in primary school was absolutely disgusting. I'm pretty sure people just call me Fatty or something, and this dude's nickname is Zeke the Freak. Again, he is of course a midfielder, 178 centimeters from Queensland in the Gold Coast Academy. It is being said that it was a super season for Zeke the Freak this year, with the younger brother of Suns defender Bodie showing all of his traits as a running, skillful and penetrating defender. Uwland plays in the Errol Goulden mold, a smaller sized ball magnet who uses his left foot kicking to pierce gaps and set up the play. The Suns Academy talent won the Hunter Harrison Medal as the best player of the Academy series, and also was selected in the under 18 All-Australian as a guy who's 17 years old. Again, he probably won't go pick 1 because the Richmond Football Club have that, meaning they'll most likely go with like a Willem Dersma or something like that. But whoever has pick 2, I think so far at the time making this video, is going to guarantee to select Zeke Uwland and of course put a bid on him, which Gold Coast will have to match. Now, again, I know all the picks and academy points and all this have all changed next year, so if Gold Coast do that trade that I did mention earlier where they would get pick 6, I'm pretty sure in most years they would technically have to lose pick 6 and would probably be given a pick later on in return or something, all of that type of stuff. So I don't know how that goes. I don't necessarily know how the points and draft matching thing goes. Again, I don't think anyone knows. I'm pretty sure the AFL literally just make that up like on the fly. So I'm not going to necessarily go too much into that. But the reality is that Gold Coast could have like pick 2 and pick 6 in next year's draft, while also being like a team that I think will finally make the 8. I think the Gold Coast Suns will finally make the 8, and if they don't, the season's a flat out disaster, because in reality, I think the Gold Coast Suns team now is by far the best they've ever had. They've got by far the best coach they've ever had. Everything has fallen really nicely into place right now for the Gold Coast Suns, and their depth is absolutely insane. Terrific backmen you've just brought into the team in Daniel Rioli and John Noble, and you've also got Leo Lombard, who should come into that 23 automatically as well. Every player, every incredibly young player they have, gets a year older too, more experience in them, another off-season. I would be genuinely shocked to the core if the Gold Coast Suns didn't make the 8 next year, and I would of course be very, very disappointed. But again, if they don't, they've still got an insane off-season coming up in 2025. I think legitimately this team, with the amount of picks, assets, and youth and core that they're bringing in, could be one of the best, if not the best team in the AFL in a couple of years. And I mean, literally next year, they could be bringing in the best player in the draft and another one of the best players in the draft as well. That is the opportunity they have set for them now with this insane 2024 trade period they had, which has set them for a great 2025 and good 2025 off-season. I think it is very safe to say that if you go and ask a lot of AFL fans out there who they've got finishing last in 2025, pretty much nearly everyone and their dad will say Richmond. Again, I'm a massive Richmond fan, and I would genuinely be so surprised if we didn't finish last in 2025. It's not just only the fact that we lost our best players in Daniel Rioli, Shea Bolton, and of course, even Jack Graham was good once upon a time, and Liam Baker there as well. You also got to remember, Richmond brought in 8 new players through the 2024 AFL draft. Literally 8 new 18-year-olds coming into your team is pretty much like a quarter of your list, and you can't expect a bunch of 18-year-olds who are probably going to play a lot of games to be able to really help you much at all. Like, for God's sakes, when I was 18, I don't even think I knew what a girl was. So, again, we can't be really having too many high expectations on these guys at all. So, I think it's very obvious that Richmond are most likely going to have the number 1 pick in 2025, as well as another good pick coming from North Melbourne, who traded away their future first in 2024 to Richmond, which means that if they are finish third last, which a lot of people predict they will, that means Richmond could have picks 1 and 3. So they'll definitely be going back to the draft and hitting that kind of harder than what Chris Brown did to Rihanna 15 years ago. So it will be very interesting to see who they go for. But something else that a lot of people aren't necessarily talking about is the fact that next season, Richmond should probably have some of the most free salary cap money to spend out of nearly every team in AFL history. If you think about it, in 2024, Richmond had Dustin Martin retired, who was the highest paid player in the game on about 1.5. Shea Bolton get traded, who apparently Fremantle took on like his whole entire contract, which was worth 1.1 million. I believe he was the 7th highest paid player in the game. And in 2025, Richmond will have Tom Lynch expire, who is the highest paid player of 2025 in about 1.6 million, according to Herald Sun. That means over these 2 years, Richmond should have freed up a ton of salary cap space. And that's not even talk about other players like Dion Prestia, who also go out of contract at the end of next year. So this has got me thinking that, considering the AFL forces teams to use up all their salary cap by the end of the season, this really does make me think that not only are Richmond going to hit the draft, but I think they're going to go after free agency pretty heavy as well, and we'll definitely be looking at a pretty good player or two. Not only do I think Richmond will go after like at least one, but they're going to go after, I think, a couple players in 2025. And what a free agency off-season would it be if Richmond came away with the number 1 overall pick, the number 3 overall pick, and 2 really good free agents, which I think the Tigers have the capability of doing. Now, of course, there is a list of players who are available who are pretty good. You've got Brandon Starcevich from the Brisbane Lions, the star up-and-coming Carlton ruck, Tom De Koning, Fremantle midfielder, Andrew Brayshaw, again, North Melbourne's Luke Davies-Uniacke, are probably the 4 best available free agents. Again, there's a couple others here and there. Of course, Sam Draper from the Essendon Football Club, who a lot of reports are saying could very well look to make a move. And I mean, Marcus Bontempelli, who I'm probably wasting breath and time off my life. It'd be kind of pointless to talk about him going, because even though he was a massive Richmond fan as a kid, I think that kind of means absolutely nothing, and he will get paid a crap ton to re-sign with the Dogs. I mean, Tom Lynch was a massive Collingwood fan as a kid, and when Collingwood offered him a contract to join their team, he picked Richmond over them. So going for the team that you went for as a kid and looking at them as a free agent option, it really doesn't mean anything at all. So we won't even talk about Bont. It won't be in consideration. But there were two players that we mentioned who I think Richmond will first and foremost really target. And that does happen to be De Koning and, of course, Sam Draper. Again, I've got a couple other players in mind who I will talk about in a second. But I want to talk about De Koning real quick, because De Koning right now, if I know right, I think signed for about 750 to 800k for Carlton. And there were rumours that when he signed that 2-year deal, that he was going to be getting about 5-year contract offers worth 800k or so. And we now know that De Koning has really pushed that number up. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is his absolute breakout year and he does, assert himself as a top 3, top 4 ruckman in the game. And I wouldn't be surprised if next year there are teams who come up to him and say, look, we'll give you 900k over 5 years to come and join our team. And I just don't think Carlton are going to be able to match that. Again, as we know, Carlton are apparently the tightest team right now in the AFL salary. They really can't move anywhere at all. And again, there were rumours for a while they were interested in Houston, and then it was revealed like their salary was actually that tight. It was almost physically impossible to get Dan Houston in. Again, they tried some things. They moved on Matthew Kennedy, which that was a good decision, because not only was he on some money, but they needed to change their midfield dynamic up a little bit. So they moved on him. A couple players will go and be free agents next year, like I think a Lewis Young might be, and a couple other players. But even then, it's going to be very tough to, I think, sign De Koning to this deal when there are going to be other teams who are going to be offering him massive contracts. And if Carlton do, they're going to be freaking tighter than a... Jeez, I was about to make a very inappropriate joke, but you know what? I don't plan on being demonetized today. They will be extremely tight, is what I'm trying to say here. And I don't know. A part of me thinks it's probably like a 70% chance he does re-sign, but I think there's a 30% chance that a team like Richmond comes out over and is like, look, we've got this really good young team. We want to now start adding some depth to it as well. We want to give you a 5-year deal worth 800 and 900k a year. And then you can come on our team. You can be with these midfielders for the next, how many years of your career, and we can really make something work. And it's also I think that he would actually work well with Toby Nankervis as well. So whenever De Koning needs a break in the ruck, which we know that's been kind of one of his issues throughout his career, is he hasn't always been able to be 100% a ruckman, then I think he could go down and play some forward while Nank played in the ruck, which, again, could very well happen. The other guy is Draper. Now, I don't think Richmond will be the team that gets him, although I think Sam Draper is a massive chance to leave. Essendon, I do think that, considering they kind of had Goldstein over him towards the end of the year, and it doesn't seem like he's their long-term guy, I think another team will offer him a deal out there, and a team like Adelaide will come and they'll offer him a good deal, I think, as well. But yeah, I think Richmond will be in the market, but I don't think they will necessarily go after him to the full extent. I think De Koning will be their priority. But the other player I mentioned earlier that I think Richmond will be super keen on does happen to be Aaron Cadman. Now, Aaron Cadman is a really interesting player right now because he's going into his 3rd season with the GWS Giants, and his first season wasn't that good. His second season, he showed a lot of signs. But it's going to be starting to be the time now where he starts to break out as a player. The thing is, I actually don't know how keen GWS are going to be on fully keeping him, considering they've got Jesse Hogan, who has absolutely broken out, and I think we'll hopefully continue this for the next couple years. They've got a couple other key forward players here and there that have come through. Cadman is also there, but I think if a big Victorian club offered Cadman a massive deal like Richmond, I think possibly will, I don't know if they will re-sign him. Again, I think Cadman, let's just say he goes out this year and he plays all 23 games and he kicks 35 to 40 goals, which he could very well do. And even if he only kicks 30 to 35, it's a second option that's pretty good. I think a team like Richmond will come pretty hard, and will offer him a massive deal. I also believe he's very, very close mates with Sam Lawler and Jonty Fall, especially Sam Lawler, who they all played at Greater Western Victoria together. And look, I know Richmond hit the draft really hard and brought in Armstrong, Fall, and Sims to play key forward for them over the next couple of years. But historically, you know, only one or two of them will go on to be a good AFL player. And I think most likely Fall and, you know, Armstrong should be, but it's very tough to know. And with Tom Lynch retiring most likely at the end of next year or whatever he's going to be doing, there is a massive opportunity right now for Richmond to potentially build a really good trio of key forwards in Cadman, Fall, and Armstrong. And Fall could obviously go and play as the backup ruckman if needed. And just imagine that, like, you know, 5 big man rotation that the Tigers would have if they did get De Koning and Cadman. Again, this is a lot of NBA 2K, a lot of dreaming right here. But De Koning is your main ruckman, Nanker's your backup, with 3 key forwards, which most teams do roll with nowadays, in Fall, Cadman, and Armstrong. That would be absolutely insane to see. And realistically, I think all 3 of them could play together because they all kind of fill a different purpose. You've got Fall, who's that big, crash the pack, marking key forward. You've got Armstrong, the key forward, who can not only play close to home, but can move up the grounds, being compared to a Jeremy Cameron. And then you've got Cadman, the really good leading key forward as well. I think that could be something really good the Tigers could definitely look at. And then last but not least, I left this one for last because I think this one is by far the most likely not to be happening, is Zach Butters is actually a free agent in 2026. And it's been said that a lot of teams are really going to try and attract him in 2025. I don't really think Richmond will offer him a deal. I don't think he'll leave Port. I think Port will offer him a deal that will make him probably the highest paid player nearly in the game. He is legitimately that good. But God, he would really fit in well to that Richmond midfield. The age bracket there as well, and what the Tigers needing, and some speed and craftiness in that midfield too. He would really fit it, and I wouldn't be surprised if Richmond also offered him a contract that made him the highest paid player in the game. I just think Port Adelaide will do it. I think he likes it over at Port, and I mean, there's not really much of a point of him leaving. He's their vice captain too, so I don't think that's really going to happen. But I think Cadman is honestly a big chance to leave GWS, and I think Richmond will be the number 1 suitor. And I think De Koning is a slight chance to leave Carlton, and I think Richmond will probably be the number 1 suitor. So I do like the Tigers potentially targeting those players. What a free agency and off-season it would be if the Tigers managed to bring in pick 1, 3, you know, De Koning and Cadman. That would be legitimately pretty crazy. Drafting the 2 best midfielders probably, getting the best ruckman in the free agency and the best key forward in there. Really having that spine, it would just be so goddamn insane. And yeah, it's a lot of NBA 2K. Probably only 10% of what I've talked about in this video will happen, but it's cool to fantasize and talk about before the season really does get started. So as some of you guys might have recently seen on the channel, I actually made a video kind of doing a way too early look at the 2025 AFL potential top 10 draft players. And I thought, you know what? Let's take this one step further and go even more early and look at the 2025 AFL free agents and kind of predict where they're going to go. Of course, in this video, I'm only going to be talking about the biggest names out there. You know, don't expect me to be out here talking about Lewis Malikan, although some people might consider him to be the greatest AFL player of all time. But in today's video, I'm obviously going to be going over some of those, the big names, and going over the likeliness of them leaving, and I guess where I think they might potentially go. I guess we'll get straight into it with the players I think are the least likely to leave their team. Of course, number one, the Bont. I mean, Marcus Bontempelli is a free agent. I can't see him leaving the Western Bulldogs, even if they do mediocre out again and, you know, make the 8, lose first round, or don't make the 8 and just miss it. Whatever the situation or case might be, that guy is more loyal to the Western Bulldogs than I am to my favorite stripper in Grand Theft Auto 5. So I don't expect him to leave at all. He'll probably sign some 3-year deal, 4-year deal that will keep him contracted for like 34 or something literally crazy, but he'll pull it off and it will be over the millions, I would assume, to get him to stay on the team and continue to do what he's doing there and the greatness he is achieving. Again, the other player I don't think is going to leave anytime soon is Brandon Starcevic. Again, I do think he'll get offers that the Brisbane Lions will struggle to, you know, counter and convince him to potentially accept on. But the reality is that they lost Joe Danaher, and whatever concerns they have, he freed up probably like 700 to 800k in salary, where they've obviously started to give that to Cam Rayner. I think they gave it to McCluggage like last season, and they're going to be giving that now to a guy like Starcevic, who has become just quietly one of the better defenders in the AFL. So I don't see him leaving anytime soon, in my opinion. And again, the other guy I just don't see leaving is Andrew Brayshaw. You watch and listen to this man in interviews, and he absolutely loves it in Fremantle. I think he expects to be the next Fremantle captain. I'm not too sure how they're going to be going about that, but end of the day is he will re-sign with the Fremantle Football Club, I think on one of the larger deals in the AFL, probably like a 9-8 year deal that will be $1 million or so per season. Again, I expect that to happen pretty soon. Again, I know there are some rumours that Adelaide and Port Adelaide, I think, are interested, because I believe he has spent some time there. Can't remember if he's from there or from Vic, but even Vic teams are interested in. It doesn't matter anyway, because end of the day, he's going to re-sign with Fremantle, and I think one of the bigger contracts that we've ever seen in the AFL. But now, getting into the juicy stuff, we'll start off with the first guy here, Luke Davies-Uniacke from North Melbourne, who I think is going to get ridiculous offers. Now, LDU has always been one of the better midfielders in the AFL, but he's never been able to string together an All-Australian type year, not just because of his team's success, but the amount of injury problems that he continuously, unfortunately, seems to have. But there have been teams out there like St Kilda who have been just quietly rumoured to offer him deals that are worth like 8 years on like $8 million. Again, massive deals by teams who aren't necessarily paying too many players like the Saints, that I think he will go to. I think LDU is slightly more likely to maybe stay. Again, I change my mind on this every day, but it's also like, if he doesn't get that near contract, it's going to be a lot of money, he will go to a team like St Kilda. And look, we got to remember, there are a lot of players now getting a lot more money. So even though LDU is typically not a guy worth up to $1 million a year, when we think about it, I think the media will change in like 2031, and Channel 7 will have to fork out a much bigger contract, meaning the salary cap is going to dramatically go up. So players like LDU who are going into 2025, you know, looking for a new contract in 2026, will be saying, look, you give me a contract that maybe starts off at $650, $700 a year, and by the time I get into my 6th year on that deal, will be the year where the new Channel 7 salary cap should most likely, of course, go up. I want $1 million from then on starting. So you'll start to see contracts like that, I think, more or so come into the AFL. And LDU is one of those guys who could be on that list. And I think St Kilda will team who will offer him like $700k per year. That's similar Tim Torano pay bracket. And then by like the fifth or sixth year will turn into like $1 million. So I wouldn't be surprised if St Kilda are that team. There'll be a couple other teams here and there that will offer him deals. Again, Collingwood have been linked a little bit as well. They're definitely looking for that really big inside contested midfielder to help Dacos, and he'd kind of be perfect for them. So that's an option as well. You've also got Sam Draper, who fell out of the best 23 nearly almost for Essendon, where Todd Goldstein was dominating so much. They weren't rushing him back from an injury. They often started Goldstein as their ruck and would bring him off the bench. It just seems like a situation where Draper needs to move on from Essendon. And I think a team like Adelaide, who dropped Riley O'Brien once or twice, I think last season, could be looking for a new ruckman. He's also from Adelaide. You've also even got a team like Richmond, who it's tough to say if they'd go with Draper, considering Nank is still technically quite a margin better than Draper, but it's obviously like Draper can continue on for the next couple of years. It's do a team like the Tigers look at him? Does another team out there, maybe go and look at him as well? There will definitely be some options and some contenders who will offer him deals. It also could be like Essendon could just come out and offer him a deal as well. But I think a team like Adelaide will look to offer him a sizable contract of some proportion that could see him leaving. I think he's the first one on this list who is more likely to leave next season than probably staying. And talking about a guy who has had, a lot of interest in staying with his team, does happen to be Tom De Koning. Again, Tom De Koning, I think, wants to stay at Carlton, but Carlton have a big salary cap issue, and they're, freaking tight as anything. Pause. In the salary cap so far. They even shopped out Matt Kennedy to get rid of his contract. They've been interested in getting rid of players like Lewis Young's contract, all of the above. Even doing all that, it will be similar to that LDU contract, where it'll start off at like $600K, and by the time you get to the 5th or the 6th year, wouldn't be surprised if it gets to like $1 million when that new Channel 7 deal does kick in. That could be something that happens. I think it's more safe to say that Koenig probably won't get that deal, but it could still fair well be like $700 to $800K per season, which I don't know if Carlton can afford. And they've already got Pitnet signed up for many, many years now. A team like Richmond, who are looking for that new future ruckman, and a guy who could still possibly play for Nank and will have a massive amount of salary cap next season to use, could for sure go out and offer him a deal. So I think that is very well potentially going to happen. And then last but not least, I think the other player who I'm not sure if he's going to leave, but it could just be retired or he could get an interesting contract offer, is Tom Lynch. Tom Lynch is a free agent, and I think he loves it at Richmond. I think he's more likely to stay. But if he does get healthy, which I really do hope, and I feel like, again, touch wood is a big, strong chance this year, and he plays like, let's just be reasonable, 15 games, and he kicks 35 goals and goes back to being one of the better contested and crash the back forwards in the league, well, yeah, you're definitely going to have a team that offers him like a 1 to 2 year deal out there in Victoria, like a Hawthorn, like a Collingwood, who was still out for that crash the pack, key forward kind of player. Even a North Melbourne, who went linked to him a couple years ago to add with, Larkey. Again, he's a much better option than what Darling is. Even when injured, he's a better option than Darling. So I think there'll be a lot of teams out there who will look at Tom Lynch and will potentially make an offer. Again, Dion Prestia is another guy who, there were rumours a year ago he was potentially looking at Gold Coast. I think Prestia is in a similar boat where people forget in 2022, he was Richmond's probably most important player other than Lynch. 2023, he had injuries but was still okay. And in 2024, there were some games where this dude was still an elite midfielder but just had injury issues. I wonder a similar thing if he, goes on to have a healthy year and maybe plays 16 games and averages the 22 touches a game and still shows that he's a really good midfielder. I do wonder if a team out there who's just looking for that last extra piece in the midfielder, or maybe even some depth, who can offer him a 1 year deal to join them, will look at him. And there's definitely going to be teams out there, even like a St Kilda, who are looking to add to their midfield, could maybe look at him if he stays healthy. But look, if he plays under 15 games, I don't see any teams going to be interested in him at all. It's just how I think he can get his body right. But of course, if you haven't already, I would very much like to hear all of your thoughts and opinions down below. What do you guys think about the 2025 AFL free agents, and who do you guys think is most likely to leave their team and, you know, maybe make an impact on another? Of course, I'd very much like to know. Subscribe to my sports channel, which is this one, my gaming channel is MIRL/long channel. Links for them will be in the description down below. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.